in a manner that may not be positive. In fact, they are not values, but they are virtues that have to impact on them better. My first problem with this bill is that it seeks to amend Section 45 to introduce a new subsection which will in essence be saying you cannot promote an advertisement of an alcoholic drink in a manner likely to suggest that the consumption of that drink promotes national values. And that is true. It is in consonance with the old Section 45, which gives circumstances in which you cannot promote an alcoholic drink. Then it also proposes that the Cabinet Secretary now does give regulations as regards times and hours when we can advertise alcoholic drinks. Again, there is absolutely nothing out of sync with the Section 45, which is being amended. But most importantly is the alcoholic drinks that are advertised. Are they really the responsible drinks for what has gone morally wrong with our society? The people who are being blamed who are usually collected from gutters, the alcoholics in the villages and in the towns, do they drink the drinks that are advertised on televisions, newspapers, and radios? In my own estimation, I say no. Most of the drinks that are responsible for degradation of our society are the illegal drinks. And that is where the law must be emphasized. Whether we like it or not, overconsumption of busa, whether changa, whether karubu, or even those sachets and miniature drinks to body and what have you, all that is what is responsible for our moral degradation. Some of the adverts as regards alcoholic drinks cannot actually be faulted. And I remember for a long time, Tusker would advertise itself, it's always a drink after work. And in a cursory manner, we changed that to mean it is a drink instead of working. Tusker baada ya kazi na Tusker badala ya kazi. All that may be so. Because adverts are actually, most of the adverts are bluffs. They are mere bluffs. They are purely meant to give you an impression that this is what happens, when in actual fact they do not mean that intention, or they do not meet what they say. Mere bluffs. But however, it is important that we do control what we advertise. It is important we also not be oblivious of the fact that we have families and family values to safeguard. But as we say so, we must also know that those who advertise in our media are actually the highest taxpayers. So whatever it is you say, including if you don't drink, you will save some money to take your children to school. You must also say in the converse that we will collect less taxes, and that has its own consequences. So we must do this. What I would actually advocate for is an audit as regards the entire Alcoholic Drinks Control Act, and especially Section 45. Since 2010, we have had Section 45 in place. It tells you you cannot advertise so as to create a false impression that there is a link between the consumption of that drink and the social or sexual success. And that's what we've been doing since 2010. Then you cannot advertise in the various manners that are set out in that section. But most important is the offense under subsection 2, that you are liable to a fine not exceeding 500,000, or to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 3 years, or to both. Audit of this law. Has anyone been taken to court for advertising in a manner that is offensive to Section 45? And to the best of my recollection, even from my practice, nobody has been taken to court because of this. Which means we may be piling what we call dead letter laws. Laws which are there in the statute books, but laws which are not enforced by anybody. So the Honorable Osoro will have to consider whether this is what we are doing or not doing. Let's carry out an audit of Section 45, look at the various adverts that are placed in the media as regards alcoholic drinks, and confirm whether we are in breach of Section 45, and whether, if so, there is any action to be taken so as to safeguard the moral purpose of that particular law. Otherwise, while we must condemn excessive drinking of alcohol, we must condemn any other thing we do which is not in consonance with our own morals, we must also not be oblivious that alcoholic industries are some of the greatest contributors of our economic development, including, as I have said, taxes, employment, because huge number of citizens are employed in that sector, and they actually benefit from it. We must balance that too. Those remarks I do support.
The Honorable Nangabo Janet, also known as Masukari. Honorable Janet.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipa nafasi hii kuunga mkono mswada wa vileo na utumiaji mbaya wa madawa. Mheshimiwa Spika, ningependa kumshukuru Mheshimiwa Osore kwa kuleta mswada huu katika bunge hili. Ni kwa sababu Mheshimiwa Spika, ni ukweli vileo zile tunatumia wakati huu, Mheshimiwa Spika, umeumiza nchi hii na umeumiza watoto wetu katika nchi hii yetu. Mheshimiwa Spika, Mheshimiwa Spika, ni ukweli wakati Mheshimiwa Osoro alikuwa akieleza kuhusu mswada huu, Mheshimiwa Spika, niliona kwamba ni ukweli kwa sababu kuna video katika televisheni zetu, Mheshimiwa Spika, zile zinawekwa picha zenye siko mbaya mno, kwa sababu unaweza kuona kwamba mtoto msichana ama mtoto kijana mavazi yale amevaa, Mheshimiwa Spika, na anaenda kusitumia kwa mambo ya matangazo, inakuwa ni vibaya mno Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa sababu inaleta aibu hata kwa jamii na hata kwa wazazi. Mheshimiwa Spika, Mheshimiwa Spika, ni ukweli wakati huu hata sisi wengine tuna shida ya kuangalia televisheni zetu, ni kwa sababu tunapoona matangazo mengine, Mheshimiwa Spika, haitufurahishi. Tunajua kwamba wale wanatoa hizo video ndio wanalipa ushuru, Mheshimiwa Spika, lakini haiko vizuri Mheshimiwa Spika kuianika ama kupeleka katika televisheni zetu. Mheshimiwa Spika, Mheshimiwa Spika, wanenaji wa kwanza wamesema hapa na wakasema hata Biblia inasema kwamba ati wale wanatumia vileo hawatakikani kwa sababu Biblia inakataza. Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi ni mtoto wa pasta na sio pasta. Ninakumbuka kwamba hata katika Biblia, Mheshimiwa Spika, ni kwamba siku moja Mungu mwenyewe alibadilisha maji na ikawa pombe. Sasa Mheshimiwa Spika, tunajua kuna wale hawatumii, lakini tunaposema kuhamasisha kuhusu hii vileo, Mheshimiwa, tunashirikiana pamoja, ni kwa sababu imebadilika apewe faini ya hizi pesa kama 1,500 ama apewe faini ya kifungu kama miezi mitatu, Mheshimiwa Spika. Na hiyo ni bora, Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa sababu itakuwa funzo kwa ule mtu ataamka tu na anachapisha kitu chochote kile kinaleta uhasama katika jamii. Mheshimiwa Spika, Mheshimiwa Spika, wenzangu wa kwanza wamesema kwamba enzi zile tulikuwa na pombe kama pusa, na hii haikukuwa kwamba mtu aende akunywe hizi pombe ndiposa akuwe mlevi. Hii ilikuwa ni nafasi ya wasee kusemezana iwapo kama wana jambo ama iwapo kama tuko na msozo. Hiyo ilikuwa ni heshima enzi zile, Mheshimiwa Spika. Lakini kwa sababu siku hizi imebadilika, tuko na mabia, tuko sijui na pombe kali, Mheshimiwa Spika, imeleta uhasama miongoni mwa watoto wetu. Mheshimiwa Spika, Mheshimiwa Spika, ningependa kushukuru Mheshimiwa Osore tena kwa kusema kwamba hata hawa watu wale wanataka kuuza bidhaa zingine, sio tu kwamba ni vileo peke yake, waangalie ni picha gani mzuri wanaweka katika hizo bidhaa zao, ionyeshe sura mzuri ile inaweza kupewa mafunzo hata kwa watoto wetu. Mheshimiwa Spika, hata unaweza kuona saa hizi mitandao, unaweza kuona mambo ya ajabu, Mheshimiwa Spika. Na hiyo ndio ilifanya, Mheshimiwa Spika, wakati tulikuwa tumepoteza maaskari wetu kule Somalia, unaona kwamba mtu alikuwa akichukua tu video yoyote anatupa katika runinga, na wenda ikawa familia haijafahamishwa kwamba kuna kitu fulani kimetendeka hivi, Mheshimiwa Spika. Na vile vile hiyo pia inakuja kama hizi vileo zile watu wana advertise katika sehemu zao, Mheshimiwa Spika. Sasa Mheshimiwa Spika, nataka niseme kwamba ninaunga mkono mswada huu, na pia ninaunga wenzangu wakisema tuendelee kufanya marekebisho katika sehemu kadhaa ya kuhakikisha kwamba hata ule waziri anayehusika ahakikishe kwamba ametia katika sheria ya kusema kwamba haya mambo ya madawa na ulevi na vileo, Mheshimiwa Spika, inachukua mkondo wake, Mheshimiwa Spika. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa hiyo nafasi nataka niseme asante sana na naunga mswada huu mkono.
Honorable Guna Gusia, member for Mwingi West. That member seemed to have taken leave, earlier leave. Honorable Onyengo Osolo, South Mugirango. Oh, you moved and then you put the very early. Then the next on line, honorable to my left, Honorable Oduol Adhiambo.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to this bill. Honorable Speaker, from the onset, I would like to thank Honorable Osoro for indeed raising an important aspect to amend the Alcoholic Drinks Control Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 70. Honorable Speaker, indeed, as has been pointed out by a number of speakers before me, as we look at the spirit, indeed, Honorable Speaker, of this amendment, we see that the Honorable Osoro would like to enable us as legislatures to ensure that that bill can address the critical subject of how alcohol is affecting our country, particularly the children and other vulnerable categories. Honorable Speaker, as I support this amendment, I would want Honorable Speaker to agree with all the members who before me have indeed indicated that it is important to contextualize and indeed to look particularly at Section 45 of the bill that we are amending of 2010 to be sure that indeed, Honorable Speaker, this amendment, as it is framed, is going to enable us to achieve that goal. I would like, Honorable Speaker, to agree with the Honorable Soro that our children, our youngsters, and indeed, Honorable Speaker, a number of categories of the population, some are elderly, others are indeed those who are stressed with the challenges of raising family. They are single mothers, single fathers, and indeed, Honorable Speaker, even those who are children are now not only orphaned, but having to look after other children, that they are, as a result of the pressures and challenges, very vulnerable, and at a number of times, Honorable Speaker, find alcohol as an aspect of consolation or escape. Honorable Speaker, my point that I hope we can reflect on as we look at this amendment is whether indeed making the amendment as we are discussing it and debating on it today will enable us to promote national values. And so, Honorable Speaker, as I support this amendment, I do it because it is important for us as a nation to recognize that we are having extreme difficulty and extreme challenges and far-reaching consequences with the manner in which we are normalizing not only drinking, but indeed, Honorable Speaker, the exposure of young people, of children. The Honorable Speaker, I had a chance to prepare a statement and point out, Honorable Speaker, that during the lockdown in COVID in 2010, Honorable Speaker, in this country, in all parts of the country, we found a very unfortunate situation where our youth were indeed drinking points, and indeed, Honorable Speaker, as was mentioned earlier, that we have, particularly in my county, Siaya, the drink, the sachet that comes across from the borders in Busia that is known as Waragi, which indeed, Honorable Speaker, seems to be something that is celebrated and indeed embraced and to a large extent, Honorable Speaker, exposed to children, even with the knowledge of duty bearers, caregivers, and indeed, Honorable Speaker, those charged with law enforcement responsibilities in our villages to take care of the young people. It is for this reason, Honorable Speaker, that as I see indeed how in this amendment bill we are looking to the power of the media and the manner in which the advertisements, if they were to be controlled in terms of the time when they would be aired, I am not persuaded, Honorable Speaker, that that is going to help us to address this problem. Other than the observation made by the honorable members of the significance of seeing that those who put the adverts actually do so because they are deliberately intending to catch prime time, I think, Honorable Speaker, that we must get back to the question of national values. And Honorable Speaker, I believe that we are at a time when we must recognize that there are things we can legislate, but Honorable Speaker, there are other things that it is in our duty to model. Honorable Speaker, we talk a lot about mentorship, and we have a number of us, not only here, who are indeed mentoring a lot of our children, a lot of our youth. But Honorable Speaker, there is a clear difference between what we mentor, what we say, including, Honorable Speaker, even as I talk right now here in the National Assembly, with what we model. Honorable Speaker, allow me, as someone who is not only a parent, Honorable Speaker, but has had in my background teaching as my area of focus, that children and young people really look at what we model. And what we model, Honorable Speaker, is what we do. And I find it difficult, Honorable Speaker, that given the kind of culture, practice, The modeling that we, as caregivers, as duty bearers, as leaders across different levels, the manner in which, Honorable Speaker, we have made alcohol, we have indeed, in a way, celebrated and promoted the lack of balance, that we would then put the blame on the advertisement. I would submit, Honorable Speaker, that what is useful is for us to recognize that there has to be balance and there has to be a way in which alcohol, as many other issues, or Honorable Speaker, or as many other items that we might want to use, has to be used with balance and has to be used in a manner that does not create harm. I therefore, Honorable Speaker, would want to submit that at the point that we are looking indeed and seeking to determine how we are getting this amendment drafted, that we truly need to go back to the manner in which our modeling, the caregivers, the duty bearers, and indeed, Honorable Speaker, the kinds of pressures that we know that we face. Honorable Speaker, it was mentioned already, we find that there is a lot of passion killing, we have a lot of incest, we have a lot of context in which there is our border, our young people, after consuming alcohol, Honorable Speaker, end up indeed causing a lot of damage, including, Honorable Speaker, molesting not just young people, young children, but even elderly. I therefore want to support this amendment, Honorable Speaker, and I particularly would like that we look to the way that we can deal with the root and not the symptom. And the root, Honorable Speaker, is not an advertisement, because when we look at the country, those young people in my village, in Ombwede, in Siaya Township Ward, I believe have never had a chance to watch any advertisement. But every time they walk around, as they go to the shopping center, they see these models of caregivers, of duty bearers, unfortunately, Honorable Speaker, that present this state of lack of balance as the norm, and indeed that even encourage them and allow them to access the drinks. Therefore, support the amendment, Honorable Speaker, but would like to urge that we do not deal with the symptoms, but we seek indeed to address national values and to model to our young people behavior that would be desirable. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I support.
Honorable Pukose Robert. Well, that member has also taken leave. Honorable Ashira Kabinga.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me a chance to contribute to this very important bill. And I really want to thank Honorable Solo for coming up with this particular bill amendment to this bill, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the issue of alcohol is an issue that this country really needs to look at in a broader perspective, Honorable Speaker, and to ask ourselves, to what extent should we continue relying on revenue collected from some of these areas like alcohol and cigarettes, Honorable Speaker? Ensuring that advertisements come at the right time and not at a time when they are likely to catch up with young men and women, children in the houses, is important. But we need to go further and ask ourselves whether it's even necessary for us to have those advertisements. And if we find it's not necessary, Honorable Speaker, then we go ahead and completely ban those advertisements. And my message even to the alcoholic drink companies is that they need not go advertising. People who drink will always drink. People know where to find these drinks, and people know them. So there is no need of spending time, spending time and money in these advertisements, Honorable Speaker. I'll look forward to the day that these companies, Honorable Speaker, sponsor advertisements that highlight the problems that are associated with alcoholic drinks, Honorable Speaker, the health hazards that are associated with these drinks. I would also wish that these companies spend more money in corporate social responsibility, taking care of the young children, the many children that are out of school courtesy of the alcoholic drinks that are taken by their parents. Instead of spending so much money in these advertisements, Honorable Speaker, it is a high time also that the Kenya Revenue Authority realize that some of these advertisements are simply a way of evading tax. They come in as an expenditure. They reduce the amount that are declared as profit by the companies. The companies spend colossal amounts of money, or they indicate colossal amounts of money in terms of promotion and advertisement, and thereby denying this country revenue which we are looking at. And therefore, it is important that even as we look at this bill, to think whether we need to also put in a percentage within which these promotions and advertisements should fall in, so that we don't lose revenue in terms of tax, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, for those that move around the world, we are aware that many countries no longer budget for revenue from alcohol and cigarettes. They actually do zero budget for these items because the problems associated with them outweigh the benefits in terms of revenue collected. There are many areas that we lose revenue through alcoholic drinks. We know that this is a country that at one time was doing very well in agriculture. Today, Honorable Speaker, a great number of our people will spend much more time in drinking than in farming, and thereby losing a lot of revenue that would have otherwise gone to this country. So even as we talk about tax that is coming from these alcoholic drinks, we need to look at the losses that we incur as a country from these drinks. The many accidents, the many children who would have otherwise become powerful men and women in this country who go into waste because of starting drinking at early stages, the revenue we are losing from other areas. And I think we need to learn from some of these other countries which have totally banned alcohol and its advertisements, and look at other areas of revenue generation that we can focus on instead of, Honorable Speaker, the current situation where we think if we killed drinking in this country, then there will be no revenue to support our services. We need to slowly now start thinking of how we can focus in other areas so that we move away from taxes that are collected from alcohol. Honorable Speaker, if we must continue with these advertisements, then I would suggest that every advertisement, no matter what time is carried out, should be accompanied with a content on the health hazards that are associated with alcoholic drinking. So that just as we do with cigarettes, then all these advertisements about alcoholic drinks should also be associated with the hazards that also come with them, so that people are also aware that it's not just the drinking or what they feel after drinking, but also the hazards that come with the drinking. And I think some of our colleagues have really highlighted some of these areas, Honorable Speaker, including reduction in the strength of a man, in sustaining himself, especially when they are performing the national course that is required of them. And we have heard from our colleagues here how even our population is going down because of some of these weaknesses that we are witnessing in our communities. Honorable Speaker, alcohol has been used in some instances to kill economies of communities. Alcohol has been used to ensure that there is social enslavement of communities so that they do not advance themselves. And it has happened even in this country at one time. Alcohol was promoted to ensure that some certain communities do not grow as much as they were growing, and to date, some of those communities are still suffering from the effects of the promotion of alcohol within themselves. And so, Honorable Speaker, I support this bill. I support the regulation as to when advertisement is supposed to take place. But Honorable Speaker, I think some of us will be coming with a proposal that we completely ban advertisement of alcohol and cigarettes, especially on our social media that is accessed by our children, Honorable Speaker, because it's unnecessary, it doesn't add any value, it's only promoting problems in this country. I've talked about the economy, family fabrics which are broken because of alcohol, the many people who are killing themselves because of spending every coin that they have in alcohol and ending up, Honorable Speaker, miserable and killing themselves. And generally, the over-reliance of a country into an economy that has no future, Honorable Speaker. With those few remarks, I support and hope that during the Committee of the Whole House, we will be bringing some amendments and proposals so that we can strengthen this particular bill to ensure that it is much more helpful to this country, and more so thinking widely and looking ahead to see how we want to live with alcohol as a substance that is not only killing our economy, but also killing the future of our young men and women. Honorable Speaker, I support. Thank you.
Let's have Honorable Luyai Amisi, member for Saboti.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this chance to contribute to this important amendment by Honorable Soro, and we congratulate him for this bill. I think, Mr. Speaker, from the onset, we must understand what was the intention of Honorable Soro to amend this important act. It's not to entirely stop the consumption of alcohol or to curb, but the intention, which I've read in the memorandum and the objects, and which I agree with, is to control the advertisement and the exposure of these products to the young ones, and especially both the media advertisement and the outdoor billboards and what have you. And Mr. Speaker, in addition, I think it is an amendment that is supposed to excite us, have a conversation, to have a discourse as a nation to the level of alcoholism in this country. We are courting an alcoholic generation, alcoholic nation. Instead of being a workaholic, we are now alcoholic. And other countries, for example, those who have had a chance to visit the Gulf nations, countries around the Gulf Peninsula, you realize that there are a lot of control laws on consumption of alcohol. Some have altogether, banned the consumption of alcohol, some regulated to a certain people and the times. And these are countries that have higher economies than Kenya. These are countries that have a high purchasing power. You look at the European nations, Some of us who've had a chance to interact with the Europe countries, you'll find laws controlling, the municipal laws controlling the time of bars and the time of clubs, that by 7, all clubs are closed, by 8, all clubs are closed, depending on which country. These are laws that are supposed to limit and control the consumption of alcohol among the people of that nation. Here in Kenya, people start drinking in the morning. People are drinking around residential areas. Clubs are established in residential areas. Children are going to school, and along the road they are meeting drunkards. This is the environment at which we are bringing up our children. We are not only saying that we must control the advertisement, but we must go deeper and control the overall consumption, because as a nation, we already have a low purchasing power. The young ones who are being targeted, the 70% of the young people in this country, they have no jobs. So these companies have made a niche, a market niche in the young people, in young generations, who have no jobs in the first place. You walk to this company and ask them to do a corporate social responsibility to your constituents. They don't do. They will take you round, but tell them to advertise. They have huge resources towards advertisement. Companies in this country have coiled, they have designed their market niche around alcoholism, so that Safaricom will have a lot of, their market design around advertisement and money transfer. It is very easy to buy alcohol because you just transfer your money, Safaricom, MPS. You look at the advertisement media houses, so much of their shares is from advertisement of companies that sell alcohol, that the biggest taxpayers are alcohol companies. I mean, we've designed our nation around alcoholism and not production. This is about consumption. Alcohol is consumption. That you are happy, you are consuming alcohol. People are celebrating, and the only way, the climax of your celebration is alcohol. You are stressed, you are sad, you take alcohol. Any human being at any given time, you are either sad or you are happy. So even when you are happy, you are taking alcohol. When you are sad, you are taking alcohol. So you are taking alcohol throughout. This is a bad precedent that we have created in this country. It is bad for the coming generation, and it must stop with our generation. We must just sit down and think things are normal. No, we cannot have a nation of alcoholism. We must stop. We are not in the league of the big nations, the economies, but we are here laying our market strategy, our companies, all our advertisements, whether it's print media, whether it's billboards out there, outdoor advertisement, they're all about alcoholism. That the biggest KRA, whatever contributors is from alcoholic companies. I mean, this must change. I wish agriculture was the biggest contributor to our revenue, but not alcoholic companies. So it's because we have created a climate or a conducive environment that promotes alcoholism. And Honorable Soro's bill, it goes a long way. This is just one of the first steps towards dealing with this menace. It may not be the perfect bill to control overall, but it has ignited a conversation, a very important discourse for this nation, that we must talk about alcoholism in this country. It is too much, so much that even in the local rural areas, you'll find boys asking you for alcohol in the morning before you can walk with them. That is that's what excites them. That's what makes them move with you. You know, it is, yes, we as members of parliament, we want that, but really, is this what we want for our nation going forward? We must stop. It is a climate we found, but we must stop as the leaders. Current leaders, we must just not propagate what was done before, and we say this is how it's supposed to be. We must stop And I want to thank Honorable Soro. You know, the last time we see him jumping on top of a podium, we thought, but I think this one is showing that I thought you were drunk that day, but because you've come up with this one, I believe you are not really drunk, something else that possessed you. That and your friend in Barambara, maybe you had learned a lot from him. But we thank you for coming up with such an important bill, and I support. Thank you.
Honorable Wanyonyi Kevin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity. And my problem is I don't know when the rain starts beating us. Honorable Soro, thank you very much for coming up with this bill. With this, we'll be able to support it because somehow this country has lost its moral obligation. Things are getting worse. Those of us who grew up in the rural areas, things are not the same as what we are seeing today. Something must be done, and I think, Osoro, I just want to agree with the Honorable Kaliba Misi. When I saw you jump on I thought maybe you're drunk, but I think you are so sober that you have to come up with this. He wasn't drunk. He wasn't. I want to thank you for coming up with this wonderful, wonderful bill, which I'm sure will be able to regulate the timing in this country. Mr. Speaker, first and foremost, the controlling or timing of the advertisement is just a Ministry of Trade. I'm not a member, but I think we should be able to have strict regulations. You know, otherwise we leave things as they are. We are not actually prohibiting advertisement. But I think the intent and intention of this bill is that there should be proper timing so that at least it's not offensive. We can adjust that so that, you know, and I'm afraid of young girls around here sitting with me, we're just having a meal, and Mr. Speaker, I get embarrassed as a father. My wife is sitting there, and they know they come and now they want to watch the news or something like that, and then you see a very stupid advertisement coming on the TV, and you don't know whether to leave the room, and when you leave the room, the children look at you as if you are not with them. So I think it's something that we can actually control. We are not abolishing the advertisement. It's business. It's a revenue-earning business for this country. But let's have some morale behind these advertisements. The eye-catching advertisements that I see, I don't know whether you now after this, you just go back home the next 1 week, you'll see what you're talking about. If you are not noticed, you'll find there's a problem. And you know, the other thing is that bar businesses, we've also not saying that the bars will not be opened. We are agreeing that bars can be opened, but at a certain time. Formerly, the bars were open on Saturdays from 5, something like that, up to about 8 o'clock. Today, you know, you walk anywhere in the city here, bars are opened. Of course, there are no jobs today. Our young men and women are out there, they are looking for jobs, left and right, there's nothing. And then he ends up in a bar. And what happens? This kind of morality is actually promoted from there. So we are also saying that the timing of the bars and the timing is proper. So the ministry that are concerned, the county governments are concerned, let's have that regulation, Mr. Speaker, so that people can be able to, let's go back to our old way of doing things. As it is, the future of our country is in your hands. Because as somebody mentioned here, whatever you say, whatever we do, children are watching. And at the end of the day, they want to copy. And that is where we are now today. So this bill is very timely. And you know, you drink, okay? You drink at your own pleasure. You drink for the sake of it. You drink because you are, maybe there's a stress. I don't drink myself, but because there's certain stress, you're undergoing certain stress and strain, you drink, or because of pleasure. I have no problem about that. But then you become very excessive drinking. The quantity that you take, you know, it actually, at the end of the day, has some impacts. We have, if you, for example, you're driving, and if you don't allow, because I sometimes saw, maybe 10 years ago, you know, policemen were there, strategically placed, so that so they stop, and they'll go, if you are drunk, the way you are, and they should stop and actually take you to the cells, keep you for a night or whatever until the following day. So that kind of thing has stopped today. Again, it's something that is under control, and we should be able to look at it and be able to see whether we can be able to at least regulate the kind of drinking. You drink and you drive. You drink, as the bill says, and you're actually going to maybe having a machine, a tractor, what have you. You are actually endangering your own self and other people that come your way. So I want to agree with this bill, and we should support it so that can be able to regulate, particularly the advertisements that actually we are seeing. Mr. Speaker, we just have to do something about it as a country. This is a religious country, and we should not just allow things to go the way they are having. And 2 or 3 days ago, I watched, I think I was just in my house and, you know, alone. Nobody was there, but I saw advertisement that said there's something wrong. So the Ministry of Trade, and I think this house comes under that, should be able to come up to be able to regulate the kind of things we are seeing, because we're actually throwing away the morality, the moral obligations of our country, and we as leaders have that responsibility. And this is where we are today. Honorable Osoro, please, thanks very good for coming up with this kind of thing. And I think we'll support you. And of course, when it comes to implementation of these particular resolutions that we're going to come up with, should be timely. Be able to ask ourselves, how long does it take? Maybe the next 1 or 2 months, be able to have had the time to see that this has been implemented, and so that it can be able to go back to where we are, where we were some 10 years ago. Thank you very much, and I support this bill. And thank you and Heko for my brother coming up with this bill.
Honorable Jaltesa Dida.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to also contribute to this bill. As I do that, I want to join my colleagues in thanking Mheshimiwa Osoro for bringing a very important bill, which will go a long way in saving the hustlers of this nation, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I will try to argue from a point where I will not have any prejudiced opinion. Because I'm a Muslim, in my religion, alcohol is haram. We don't consume alcohol. Therefore, in any form, I don't advocate for its advertisement or for its consumption. However, I am a national leader. I am a leader of the people of Isiolo, which has all faith, which has people who consume alcohol, people who sell. Therefore, I want to argue as a leader without bringing my opinion. Therefore, this is very important. It is important, as been said by another young member, Mheshimiwa Caleb, that this one actually, we needed to go further and bring more stricter amendment to alcohol in terms of consumption, in terms of advertisement, and even in terms of production. I say this, Mr. Speaker, because a lot has been said about it, the negative impact of alcoholism in this country. It is known to have destroyed families. Families, I think most of us here know, because as leaders, we interact with people, we see. Mr. Speaker, it pains me because actually most of us have even stopped watching news with our families. And because evenings are the times we get to spend with our families, it becomes difficult to open the televisions. Because you open there, an advert pops in of young people, half naked, trying to do funny advertisement, Mr. Speaker. It has influenced the society. We bring up our children, telling them that alcohol consumption is not allowed, but they watch advert where it is shown that young people who consume alcohol are energetic, they have muscles, they are strong, they are clever, they can do things, and yet you tell them it is not right to consume alcohol. That puts us in a very difficult situation as parents, even practicing our faith. Therefore, this is very timely. I think at the level of the committee of the whole House, we will seek guidance from senior members, like my sister here, our mentor, Mheshimiwa Gesa, to guide us on how to bring, I hope, Mheshimiwa Mili, we will bring more amendments to enrich this bill. Mr. Speaker, when sometimes you go to constituencies, we even cannot move around freely in the morning because you find young people chasing us around. And when you give them something, instead of going to buy tea, they rush to buy some very funny drinks here and there. We have had to deal with cases of where a young boy or a young man marries today, in about 2 weeks or so, the marriage is dissolved. Because when you try to listen, and these are facts, Mr. Speaker, it is because he cannot perform. He cannot perform. It has happened. Mr. Speaker, our social fabric, and this one, you cannot say it is this religion or that. These days, we have even young people from Islamic community who are engaged in alcohol consumption because of the peer pressure, because of advertisement that shows that when you don't consume alcohol, then you are backward, you are primitive. Such are things, Mr. Speaker, we need to regulate. In short, I think as a House, we need to go further and bring serious regulation to alcohol consumption. Therefore, I want to thank Mheshimiwa. I don't want to say more, because if I say more, maybe I'll go into details, and therefore I support.
Honorable Bogomenza. Wait, you need to be on record.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipa fursa hii kuchangia mswada huu ulioletwa na Mheshimiwa Osoro kuhusu matangazo ya vileo katika Jamhuri yetu tukufu ya Kenya. Mheshimiwa Spika, nafikiri mengi yamezungumzwa na viongozi waliotangulia, na tunajua athari za vileo vile zimeweza kutanda katika Jamhuri yetu ya Kenya. Pombe imeleta madhara makubwa sana Mheshimiwa Spika katika Jamhuri yetu ya Kenya, na nafikiri kuna kiongozi hapa amesema zile shida ambazo kina mama pia wanapitia majumbani kutokana na mambo ya ulevi. Mheshimiwa Spika, sisi tunaelewa kuwa haya makampuni ambayo yanafanya matangazo haya yako katika biashara, lakini tunaunga mkono kwa ukubwa kuwa matangazo haya ni lazima yathibitiwe kwa sababu tumeona athari zake. Wakati matangazo haya yanafanywa ni wakati utapata familia zimekaa pamoja, pengine zinaangalia kipindi fulani, pengine zinaangalia habari za Jamhuri ya Kenya. Wakati ule kwa kizungu tunasema ni prime time, lakini ndio inatumiwa kama fursa ya kuwa utawapata watu wako majumbani wamepumzika, pengine wanapata chakula cha usiku, na ndio wanatumia fursa ile kujaribu kutangaza yale matangazo yao ili waweze kuboresha biashara zao. Lakini Mheshimiwa Spika, tunaelewa japokuwa ni biashara, japokuwa wanatafuta kupata mapato katika kazi zao, lakini kuna umuhimu wa kuangalia umma kwanza, kwa sababu hatuwezi kuwa tunatafikiria pesa na umma unaangamika. Na watu ambao hapa wamekusudiwa zaidi ni vijana wa kike na vijana wa kiume, kwa sababu wao ni wepesi wa kuiga. Wakati wanaona matangazo kama yale, kumewekwa pale mvinyo, kumewekwa kileo, kumewekwa mwanamke mrembo, wanaona kuwa pombe na warembo zinaenda sambamba. Na tunaelewa kuwa hiyo si ukweli, na hii ndio kuna umuhimu kuhakikisha mambo kama haya yamethibitiwa, ili tuhakikishe kuwa yale ambayo yanatangazwa ni matangazo yenye mwelekeo. Na kama walivyosema kiongozi mheshimiwa fulani, kuwa saa nyingine ni bora hawa wauzaji na watengenezaji wa vileo waweze kutuonesha athari zinazoletwa na vinywaji vile wanavyouza, ili watu wapate kujua kuwa kumbe kinywaji kama hiki, pombe kama hii inaweza kuleta madhara kama haya. Lakini wakituonesha tu upande moja mzuri kuwa hii inafanya hivi, inaleta picha nyingine ambayo sio sawa, Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi kama mjumbe wa Kisauni, langu ni kuomba kuwa hii mswada ulioletwa na Mheshimiwa Osoro tuunge mkono. Kama kuna mabadiliko yote ambayo yanatakana kufanya wakati wa kamati ya nyumba mzima, tuweze kuyafanya ili tuhakikishe mswada kama huu unafanya kazi yake. Tunajua katika katiba kuna sheria kuwa mtu akifanya matangazo ambayo hayaambatani na hali yetu ya kimaisha, anatakikana ashikwe na ashtakiwe na alipishwe faini ya karibu 500,000 au apate kifungo cha miezi 3 gerezani. Lakini tukiangalia Mheshimiwa Spika, tangu katiba hii, tangu sheria hii iwe inafanya kazi, hatujaona mtangazaji yoyote ambaye au muuzaji yoyote wa vileo ameweza kupelekwa mahakamani na kushtakiwa kuonesha kuwa sheria ile iko lakini haifanyiwi kazi, kumaanisha kuwa kuna ulegevu fulani, Mheshimiwa Spika. Na kuna umuhimu wale wote ambao wanahusika katika kuhakikisha sheria hizi zinatimizwa na zinafuatwa waweze kuhakikishwa mambo kama yale yanafuatiliwa, kwa sababu bila kuwa na mfuatilio na mwongozo, shida kama hizi tutaziona majumbani sana. Mheshimiwa Spika, sisi kule Pwani tuko na kileo ambao kinatoka katika mti wa mnazi. Kileo kile ni kileo cha natural, yani ni kileo cha ambacho hakitengezwi na binadamu. Lakini pia tumeona athari zake, lakini kwa njia moja au nyingine inasaidia katika masuala fulani. Kwa sababu tumeelezewa hapa kuwa vinywaji hivi vya kileo, vinywaji hivi vya kizungu, vinywaji ambavyo vinatengenezwa na binadamu vimefanya wanaume wanashindwa kufanya majukumu yao ya kinyumbani wakati wako na wake zao pale. Lakini sisi kule Pwani tunasema ukiangalia majumba yetu haswa katika familia za Kimijikenda, utapata kuwa ule mti wa mnazi au pombe ile ya mnazi imekuwa kama inaongeza nguvu za kiume kwa njia moja au nyingine. Utapata familia moja, mzee yuko na wake 4, yuko na watoto 20, lakini utapata kuwa yeye ni mtumizi wa kinywaji kama kile. Hatusemi kuwa ni jambo zuri, lakini tunasema kuwa haya mambo hivi vileo ambavyo vinatengenezwa na binadamu ambavyo vimeongezwa makemikali ambao hatuyaelewi ndio zinaleta athari nyingi sana, kwa sababu zinakuja zinavuruga mwili wa binadamu, zinaingilia maini, zinaingilia figo, zinaingilia kila kitu. Mwisho unapata kuwa wewe kama mwanamume unashindwa kutoa majukumu yako kama mwanamume pale nyumbani. Mwisho unalala na mke wako, inakuwa ni kama dada yako katika kitanda. Kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi langu ni kuomba kuwa mswada kama huu tutilie nguvu, tutilie pondo zaidi, ili tuhakikishe tumeweza kuhimili masuala kama haya, ili vizazi ambavyo viko sasa na vizazi ambavyo vinakuja nyuma viwe na mwelekeo bora katika jamii yetu. Kwa sababu tusipochunga hawa vijana, Mheshimiwa Spika, mwisho wake tutakuta kuwa vijana wetu wameharibikiwa, vijana wale watakuwa hawana njia yoyote ya kimaisha, hawana mwelekeo bora. wataanza kuacha mambo ya masomo, watashindwa kutimiza kwenda kufanya majukumu yao ya kutafuta riziki za kila siku, kwa sababu wao wakiamka ni masuala ya pombe, ni masuala ya vileo, ni masuala ya matumizi ya mihadarati na mengineo. Mheshimiwa Spika, katika haya masuala ya vileo, kule pwani sisi tuko na shida moja kubwa sana ambayo imeletwa na huu mmea unaitwa mgoka, ambao leo ukifika kule Mombasa utapata kila kijana amenunua karatasi yake tunaita brown envelope, ambayo inauzwa mpaka shilingi 20, ambayo imekuwa ni tatizo kubwa sana kwa vijana wetu wa Mombasa. Na tuna imani kuwa haya yote, mgoka na mengineo, yote yako katika vileo ambao vinasababisha madhara makubwa sana katika jamii. Mheshimiwa Spika, sisi letu ni kuomba kuwa haya masuala ambayo tumeongelea hapa tuweze kuyatilia maanani, tuweze kuyajadili kwa kina, na kwa haraka iwezekanavyo tuweze kupitisha huu mswada ulioletwa wa mabadiliko ya hii sheria, ili tuhakikishe kuwa sheria hii inafanya kazi ipasavyo. Kwa hayo mengi machache, Mheshimiwa Spika, naunga mkono kikamilifu.
Mnene, member for Taita Taveta.
Asante Bwana Spika kwa kunipatia fursa hata mimi niweze kuchangia kwa mswada huu ambao ni mswada wa muhimu sana katika nchi yetu, na nitangulie tu kwa kumpongeza Mheshimiwa Osoro kwa kuweza kuleta mabadiliko katika mswada huu. Mheshimiwa Spika, nchi ya Kenya ni nchi ya maadili na ni nchi ya maadili mema, na kwa hivyo kuongelea mambo ya vileo ni swala ambalo ni swala la muhimu zaidi kuweza kulijadili, kwa sababu tumeona changamoto ambazo zimeletwa na mambo ya vileo, na hususan swala kamilifu ambalo tunalijadili leo la kuweza kuleta habari za mauzo ama advertisement kwa Kiingereza kupitia watoto wetu ambao ni vijana wetu wa umri mdogo, na pia wanazileta wakati ambao sio wasawa, wakati ambao pia kwa Kiingereza wanasema prime time, wakati familia ziko pamoja na zinajadili mambo ambayo ni ya muhimu kifamilia. Tumeona kwamba wakati wanaleta habari hizo za mauzo, wanajaribu kuonyesha ya kwamba wale vijana ama wale watoto ambao wanatumika ama wanatumia vileo hivyo wako bora zaidi ya wale wengine ambao hawatumii. Wanaonyesha kwamba wale wengine wanakuwa kama wenye akili zaidi, ama kama ni wasichana wanaonyeshwa kwamba wanaotumia vileo hivyo ndo warembo zaidi ya wengine, ama ndo wenye nguvu kupita kiasi. Na hiyo basi haiendi vyema na wengine, kwa sababu inakuta mara nyingi wengi wanajaribu kuiga na wanaiga kwa njia mbaya. Kama jamii na kama viongozi ni lazima tulinde maadili ya nchi yetu. Tumeona hatari nyingi sana ambazo zimeletwa na hivi vileo, na mimi ni kusimama tu na kusema ni jambo bora kuweza kuweka sheria ambayo itadhibiti habari hizi za mauzo ambazo haziendi sawa na jamii, ambazo haziboreshi kivyovyote vile familia zetu ama jamii zetu. Bwana Spika, tukiongelea mambo ya vileo, tumeona watoto wetu wengi haswa vijana wameharibika kwa sababu ya pombe tofauti. Mimi nikiwa mjumbe mwakilishi wa kina mama kutoka kaunti ya Taita Taveta, huko kwangu kuna sehemu inaitwa Mwatate, na kuna vileo huko vinauzwa ambavyo vinaharibu sana wale vijana wetu. Ni vya bei ya rahisi na vinaharibu watoto. Ni swala ambalo tunaendelea kulifuatilia, na tukiendelea kuunga mswada wa leo mkono, nitasema kwamba haya maswala ya vileo kwa ujumla ni lazima kama viongozi tuketi tuyajadili kwa undani na tuweke sheria mwafaka ni vipi tutalinda jamii zetu zaidi vijana kutokana na hatari ambazo zinaletwa na mambo ya vileo. Asante Bwana Spika kwa kunipatia hii fursa na ninaunga mkono.
Honorable Wafula Munyinyi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to speak on this bill regarding alcohol drinks control amendment 2019, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, first of all, I want to acknowledge that I was part of the team that also did undertake a scrutiny of this bill at the committee when the Honorable Soro made the proposal. And we looked in detail, Mr. Speaker, about the objects, the intended the objects that would be realized when this piece of legislation is passed. And Mr. Speaker, what the benefits would be in our society, in our communities. Mr. Speaker, the bill intends to give the minister power to provide for the timing for advert, like for the TV. The most popular TV in our country is Citizen. It's the one that is most widely watched. And its adverts are usually very good, Mr. Speaker. The adverts in Citizen TV come every time at the prime news, at the prime time, when you get adverts coming. And normally they have a lot of influence. If there are products being sold, they sell so much products because it is widely watched and has so much influence. So it makes a lot of sense, Mr. Speaker, when you particularly want to focus on alcoholic drinks, where normally adverts come at the time when the family, the children, everybody is focused on TV. And Mr. Speaker, then you bring an advert of like Guinness for power. You know, you look at Guinness for power being presented on the screen and you are told, please take it. It makes you powerful. You know, when that of Plisna comes, ni bia imara kama Simba. You know, chama changu Simba, chama Simba. You know, then members of my party are associated with Plisna because Plisna ni bia imara kama Simba. But also it energizes other people. So these adverts, Mr. Speaker, need to be checked. While we appreciate the fact that you know, the TVs and media generally are profit-oriented, and they do not take responsibility for adverts. In fact, usually they place disclaimers against an advert, so to the extent that you don't hold them responsible. But, Mr. Speaker, these adverts have a lot of influence, and you know, they need to be checked. And I think it's a good. It is important that this legislation is passed so that there can be a check on the timing. There are certain adverts which have a lot of influence on young people. You know, the young people in the family, you know, watching TV, they put a lot of pressure on these young guys, Mr. Speaker. So this also needs to be checked. But at the same time, Mr. Speaker, you know, alcoholism and addiction has been steadily on the increase. Despite the curfews in our country, we've had curfew for long. And we have eateries, you know, closed, you know, early, and even businesses like hotels and bars have gone down. But the consumption of alcohol, Mr. Speaker, from the wines and spirits, the takeaway to home has been on the increase. Mr. Speaker, even the various other substances, apart from alcohol, the various other substances, has also been on the increase, Mr. Speaker. So we need to do much more than just having to regulate, to put regulation on adverts in the TV. That is a small percentage, Mr. Speaker. We need to do much more. We have had a piece of legislation which was passed in this House, the Psychological and Counseling Act. Mr. Speaker, its implementation has taken too long. We need to get counselors, we need to get psychologists, experts, who should do a lot of work to rehabilitate, to counsel, and to prevent the damage that we're going through, the damage that we are seeing in our country. Young people getting hooked, young people getting addicted to even hard drugs. COVID has also been a major factor in this, because as you push many people home, you close places. They have also been innovative, and they get these wines and spirits take away home. And this also has applied. When the parents take home and they're taking with the children, it just shows that it's a good thing. And therefore, we need to do much more to help our families, Mr. Speaker. With those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, allow me to say I support this bill, and thank you for giving me the chance to speak.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for allowing me to contribute to this very important bill by Honorable Osoro, the Alcoholic Drinks Control Amendment Bill 2019. Honorable Speaker, this bill has two amendments, and in the first amendment, you're giving the Cabinet Secretary the powers to prescribe the hours within which the electronic advertisement of the alcoholic drink shall be done. And you're also saying that the consumption of this drink should promote national values. Honorable Speaker, I think that is the gist of the amendment to this bill, which I find is quite in order, and I think that this is a very good amendment, because more often we've seen even the Kenya Film Corporation going after contents that have been that have been prepared by some of our artists. We've seen them trying to even make them not to continue with those kinds of, but somebody, it is for an adult, somebody who is over 18, you have a right to choose. But for children below 18, even in the drink, it is written that if you are above 18, then you can drink. If you are below 18, then you should not drink. I think that's written in the bottle of the beer or whatever drink it is. It is also like even smoking. Even in smoking, it is written also who can be able, below which year you should not be able to be smoking. And I think when you say you want to promote national values, I think these are things that are lacking completely in our society. Because when you look at even the issue about the controlling even corona now, when you put regulations that we need to have curfew hours between 10 o'clock and I think 5 a.m., you ask yourself, how effective is that in controlling this corona issue? Is it really working? And when you did that there shall be no public gatherings, yet you find that others are actually exempted from those public gatherings. They continue doing the public gatherings. And when some who are in a different lineage or a different coalition, when they attempt to also have even that meeting, you find that the police are sent to disrupt those kinds of meetings, to disrupt. It is selective. When you do it selective, I don't think it is going to achieve anything. That is why you look at the spike for the coronavirus infections. The spike is still up and down, up and down. We're not actually getting anywhere. And at times, the healthcare workers are even feeling frustrated because what we do is that in most cases, I was hearing the governor of Kiambu yesterday claiming that in one of the hospitals we don't have enough more beds. Yet you look at it, how much money was brought for the COVID. We had a team that was formed, a national team that was formed to look into this COVID issue. We had money set aside for an establishment of beds, building up structures. What happened to that? Do we really go back and look at how did we try to control this disease? And therefore, issue of promoting national values, I think it needs to be inculcated. And I think this should even form part of the syllabus. Maybe we start inculcating national values right from the bottom there, moving upwards, the bottom-up approach. That might be able to give us maybe something to think about. As much as we're thinking about the economic model, let's also think of how do we inculcate national values, right from the bottom going up so that we can be able to have issues that can be tackled. When we say that these advertisements should be done within this period, we are actually setting the electronic media to understand. And these are basics, because even people who work within those electronic media, they are adults, they have families, they have children. How do they feel when some of those adverts come in and they are with their children, maybe eating supper or even eating lunch, and something comes, an advert that is really should not be able to appear at that time? How do they feel? So I think this is captured in that issue of inculcating moral values, inculcating what are the principles for us as a country that we can be able to live with it and say that this is right and this is wrong. Because more often you'll find that people would want to have a situation where somebody has to be law enforcement. You require maybe a law enforcement to enforce it. It shouldn't be like that. It should be self-regulated. It should be you as an individual. You know, when you look at even the laws that are there in existence on the same issue, regulations would have done this. But with those regulations not achieving this, this is why Osoro felt I think I need to put it in an act. I think I need to make an amendment because these regulations, which are supposed to have achieved this, they have not done that. So this is an amendment that calls the consciousness of especially those who in the advertising media. It also the media fraternity. And we even have the media council. They should be able to look at some of these things and understand that our adverts should be able to come within this period of time. Why should we wait until Osoro has come up with an amendment for us to be able to realize this, what we're doing as a media fraternity is wrong? So, Honorable Osoro, I think this is a good amendment. I encourage also members that we look at some of the areas that we, just like this one, that we can be able to amend and make sure that we bring in laws that can help our society. Thank you, and I support.
Honorable Okelo, member for Nyando.
I thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I am a bit apprehensive and hesitant to support such kind of a bill, and this stems from my Christian background. I wouldn't wish to promote any agenda that is incongruent with the belief of a Christian. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, Honorable Osoro has brought this agenda, which we are alive and awake to, that there is alcoholism, and alcohol has contributed quite immensely to the destruction of our young children. The productive lot of our society currently, which is the youth, have developed a tendency of staying very late in the night doing nothing but drinking alcohol. Some members of this House have alluded to this fact, that when we walk around as their leaders, the first thing they would be asking you is money. And if you ask for doing what, they will tell you to drink alcohol. So, whereas some of us here would be doing it in order to perpetuate their political well-being, but on the flip side, you think about the destruction that you are preferring on these kinds of people. Honorable Speaker, there are two things: to destroy a community, deny them education, and introduce them to alcohol. That is a ruined society forever. I also acknowledge, because I live in this country and I live in the world as a member of that society, that when it comes to remission of taxes, the companies that deal with liquor pay so much to sustain the programs of government. So we are alive and awake to that fact. And they additionally employ so many people. Apart from the government, I think EABL, for instance, would be number 2 in terms of provision of jobs to our society. So we are alive and awake to these facts. But the mere fact that alcohol in itself is a destroyer needs just more than a control. Any company worth its salt would be targeting the prime time so that there is a bigger catch of the people who will be benefiting from the information on advertisements. And therefore, I do not know how this is going to sit with alcohol and their clientele base. But here we are trying to prefer certain times which will be prescribed further by the minister in charge, who drinks alcohol and is so successful just because they're drinking alcohol. They would be successful in other things, in other strata, but not because they have become champions in consuming alcohol, Honorable Speaker. My friend who recently claims to be one of my best friends is trying to be at pains to absorb this, but I don't think he drinks alcohol either.
yeah, he has never drank alcohol, and therefore, when we talk about this, he's on the same prism as myself. So, Honorable Speaker, with all this, I want to say...
Honorable Member for Nyando, what is it, Honorable Akob?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I do apologize for the Honorable Member for interrupting him when he's speaking. Mr. Speaker, I'm just requesting members, given the time limit and the interest, if we could just reduce our contribution so that many more members can speak, because it has a lot of interest, but procedurally I can't actually move now for reduction of time. And this is a very straightforward matter. If we can just speak a little so that many more members speak. Thank you.
Well, it's good, Honorable Akob, you actually directed it to your colleague members, because procedurally you may not reduce, but look, she is just doing a persuasion, so then we accommodate more members. But let's see, Honorable Akob, whether your persuasion is actually persuading enough. Honorable Member for Nyando.
And in line with her persuasion, I'm persuaded to that extent, Honorable Speaker. It would be a remiss not to put it clear that I subscribe to the Seventh-day Adventist faith and an ardent believer in all its doctrinal values. And therefore, just as I said, I wish everybody would be aligned to the Adventist faith so that together we do which pleases Jesus Christ. And Honorable Speaker, I do not, therefore, support a bill of this nature, and I thank you very much.
Honorable Ekamais, Member for Loima.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to add my voice to this very important contribution or debate. Honorable Speaker, I think my colleague and friend Ozoro has brought a very good amendment that I think will have very serious effect if really passed to our youth and our communities. Honorable Speaker, I want to support the idea that we need to do something about the electronic adverts, because the rate in which actually they give very negative messages to our young children will continue impacting badly on our youth. So I think that one, we should do something actually to do some overhaul so that the things that we advertise are the ones that will be captured by our youth in a more positive manner. Honorable Speaker, I see by ages of 19 to 20 or even to 25 there, most of our youth, like 70% of them engage on very heavy drinking. So I think this will result to majority of them actually ending up making very bad decisions in life. So I feel by enacting what my friend Ozoro has brought to us will help us get the best youth out of our communities. Honorable Speaker, I think there's a problem with our families today, because I find that like 60% of our youth prefer taking alcohol in the morning as breakfast. Like 60% of them, because if you invite them at home and you bring sodas or tea, they will say, we don't take this thing nowadays. We will go for something else later. So, meaning there is something wrong. And we need to actually do something to ensure this kind of attitude that is cropping up is changed.
Is that Honorable Bala Kinyi? What is out of order, Honorable Bala?
Mr. Speaker, is the Speaker on the floor in order to say that 60% of our youth take alcohol in the morning for breakfast? Does he have that information, data? Thank you.
Member for Loima, that looks like you have done quite a bit of research on that. The member is just
Honorable,
asking for-
Honorable Speaker, I said like 60%. We are just discussing here, Honorable Speaker, saying our youth are highly affected by the element of alcoholism.
It's a general statement, rather
Yeah.
than on fact.
So if indeed it's not something that we can support, we apologize for that, Honorable Member. So, Honorable Speaker, I was just saying our youth, in fact, all of us interact with our youth in our constituencies or even in our villages. You will get most of them do not really want to take a soda or even tea when you are offered an opportunity to buy for them. Most of them. That I have established as a member of Parliament for Loima. So I feel there is a need actually to do something so that we change that kind of attitude, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, nowadays there is this business of the border. And most of the border drivers get accidents. They are highly involved in accidents. And if you try to assess those drivers, or even those who drive vehicles, you can get most of them are youth. So the crash risks that our people are exposed to are majorly on the side of the youth than for adults. So, Honorable Speaker, I feel this amendment is very, very important, and I join my colleagues to support it, Honorable Speaker. Thank you.
Honorable Bai.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to speak to this bill, and I also appreciate the originator, Honorable Osoro. Mr. Speaker, I'll be very brief because I know other members would want to contribute. Mr. Speaker, one of the issues I would want to bring out is a culture that has grown in our country where you find parents going to drinking dens or these bars with their kids. And the kids are playing just around there, and the parents are drinking. The mother is drunk, she's dancing, her daughters are watching. Then there's the nyama choma, they all come sit around the table. There are drinks around the table. The next table are people who are drinking and singing. We have Mogidi all over. Mr. Speaker, that's something that needs to be looked into as we work on this bill, because it's very unfortunate when we allow our kids to spend a whole afternoon in a bar. And young kids, I'm talking of kids of 7, 8, 9 years, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the other thing is we also need to add on this definition for the alcohol, because there are some more dangerous alcoholic substances than what we define alcohol, just like beer and the brews and all that. Mr. Speaker, I'm talking of things like mukuka. You find mukuka has gone even to the smallest village in this country, and it's all over the country. Young boys are not going to work. The youth are not going to work. By 10, a young man has already, with 30 shillings, a young man can afford a pack of mukuka, which the guy can spend a whole day chewing. And within 3 hours, the young man, Mr. Speaker, cannot be told anything, cannot hear anyone, cannot work. And how do they get the money for the following day to do the same, Mr. Speaker, or have some dinner in the evening? They end up stealing. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, it's about manufacturing and licensing. You know, we have some liquor, we have some alcohol in the market. I always call them alcohols without PO box, because you can't trace where this alcohol comes from. If you want to know where Tusker comes from, Mr. Speaker, you know where we will go. If you want to know where Guinness comes from, you will drive there. But, Mr. Speaker, there are some drinks which are more popular in our shelves, the shelves of bars. which you can't tell where they are coming from. And they are on the billboards, they are on papers, they are on TVs, they are on radios, and they are very dangerous. With little money, young men can access them, but we can't trace where they are coming from. So that's one of the things, Mr. Speaker, that needs to be looked into. And as we also look into that, we also need to discuss the traditional brews, because I know the government is very serious on clearing the issue of taking the local traditional brews. But yet, Mr. Speaker, I think the work is like 70% done. We have a lot of traditional brews being taken in the villages, and this is affecting our public. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, I will tell Mr. Osoro, Honorable Osoro, not to worry, we'll work on this. The youth are in this, Mr. Speaker, because of this trickle-down thing. When we get into the bottom half thing, Mr. Speaker, I think we'll have an opportunity for the youth to be safe. Thank you, and I support.
Honorable Odhiambo Akoth.
It's now okay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, let me try and follow my own request, which is to try and speak in the shortest time. I want to support Honorable Osoro for bringing up these amendments. Mr. Speaker, I wish Honorable Jared was here. I'm also a Seventh-day Adventist like him, and the proposed amendments here actually help Seventh-day Adventists. It doesn't go against the principles of Seventh-day Adventists, because Seventh-day Adventists don't drink. And so what Honorable Osoro is trying to do, and I know his constituency has a lot of Seventh-day Adventists, and what he's trying to do is to protect our young generations while appreciating that people are doing their businesses. So it's actually creating a balance. Mr. Speaker, what I would want to say is that in the last parliament when Honorable Tuto brought the bill, I remember when we were speaking in this house, almost every single member of this house had a member of their family who is a victim of alcoholism, including my own family, Mr. Speaker. And because we are not able to manage and we don't have facilities that are enabling us to manage those, we don't have sufficient ones, we need to make sure that we protect our youth by advertisements that are giving them reasonable information. And so what Honorable Osoro is trying to do is to indicate that advertisement should not purport to say that drinking promotes national values. Mr. Speaker, because I don't want to look like I'm targeting a specific drink, but I know a specific drink in mind that actually makes it look like when you drink that drink, alcoholic drink, and eat nyama choma, then you are very Kenyan. Mr. Speaker, I've never, strangely, I know many people always think because of the way I do my things, many people think I drink. Because I was born, raised Adventist, I have never tasted a bit of alcohol, except when we are having the church, what is it called? Those ones you take in church. Mr. Speaker, I do not take any form of alcohol. Altar wine. The altar wine. I never take any form of alcohol. I have never done, and I do not intend in my entire life. And Mr. Speaker, the only thing I would want to encourage Honorable Osoro, because what he told me verbally is actually not indicated here. Because he said he wants to make sure that we do not do advertisements in a manner that expose nakedness of women and young people. He does not have that here. But fortunately, I've looked at the main bill. It outlaws things like that, except it puts a fine of only 500,000. Honorable Osoro, perhaps if you could consider within your same amendment of the same provision to enhance the fine, because 500,000 to these big companies is actually nothing. It's petty cash. And Mr. Speaker, the other issue that I'm also seeing in this amendment is Honorable Soro, is a bit scared. He's indicating that the Cabinet Secretary shall prescribe the hours within which electronic advertisement of alcoholic drinks shall be done in both Section 45 and Section 68. Why can't we prescribe it here? So that the times when people, when we do not want those advertisements to be done, we do it by Parliament and not wait for the Cabinet Secretary that may do their own thing. And finally, Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to encourage the honorable member who spoke before me to actually go and learn that if you actually effect devolution properly, then our youth will be sorted and will not revert to alcoholism. This bottom-up approach, Mr. Speaker, that he's talking about will not save our children. Because you notice the other day, even Honorable Alice Wahome was not able to describe what that bottom-up approach. And Mr. Speaker, in my language, we call bottom-up approach tichosianda. How does that help young people? If you lift your buttocks up, how does it help young people? Let us do things which actually are meaningful and can help people, young people and young women. With those few remarks, I support and congratulate Honorable Soro. Thank you. That you lift your buttocks up and then sit on a wheelbarrow. Be serious, Omera.
Well, let's get to the next person, and that next person is Honorable Dawood Lahim.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on the outset, I want to congratulate my friend, Honorable Osoro, who fortunately comes from Meru, so he knows what he's doing. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Mheshimiwa Osoro has brought these amendments to the bill, and they're very good amendments because, Mr. Speaker, when we are talking about advertising alcoholic drinks on national television and posters, big posters and all that, I think he has not mentioned the big posters at every corner. Mr. Speaker, in the year 2005, Kenya ratified the tobacco advertisement banning, and in 2007, we passed, the Parliament passed the tobacco advertising bill of 2007, and in that, Mr. Speaker, from that date, we are not allowed to advertise at any place, any tobacco selling. So, Mr. Speaker, when we are talking now about advertising of alcohol, I think we can even look at it in that the way it is, because one of the I don't remember, one of the previous speakers has said that alcohol companies contribute a lot to the exchequer. But, Mr. Speaker, so do the cigarette companies, because even the cigarette companies contribute a lot to the exchequer. But even if it was banned for advertising, cigarettes are still sold. So, Mr. Speaker, we should look at how we are going to regulate advertising for alcohol. Not that we are banning alcohol, although I myself do not drink, but my constituents have one or two, once in a while. Mr. Speaker, the bill even mentions national values, that nobody should promote any drink which will show that it is good to drink because of national. And there is nothing like having a drink to show that you are more Kenyan than another. I think, Mr. Speaker, we need now to see how we are going to, if it is possible, to get people off the illegal brew. Mr. Speaker, in 2014-15, when His Excellency the President launched in central Kenya, and I believe you were there, Mr. Speaker, in one of the meetings at, if it was, I think it was in Sagana or Nyeri, where we talked about alcoholism being spread in central Kenya, because there were times when many people, instead of sleeping on the bed, they would sleep under the bed because they were under influence of alcohol. And Mr. Speaker, at that time, we had an issue, And myself, in my constituency, I went around the constituency tackling illegal alcohol, which was packed in, it's called kibondi. And it was packed in containers which were not allowed, and which some had wrong stickers of excise, stamp duty and all that. And Mr. Speaker, we demolished a lot. And when we tried to even burn it, Mr. Speaker, you will not believe it, there was a big fire, it was like a bomb. So can you imagine, Mr. Speaker, somebody drinking that, putting it down their throat, what kind of bomb will it be in the body? And that is why His Excellency had led that program. But unfortunately, that program did not go on very much, because after we stopped them, the sellers, retailers, who were doing the fake illegal alcohol went to court and nearly took us, we were nearly charged for malicious damage because they got court orders. So I would want to even ask the new CJ, CJ Martha Koome, to look at that the courts do not give favorable rulings to people who want to mess up our people with illegal drinks. Mr. Speaker, I want to go ahead. Mr. Speaker, we used to have traditional brews, and there are many traditional brews everywhere. And in Meru, we used to call it kadoroko. It's kind of a traditional brew. Not that it was very good, but at least it was a traditional brew. Not many people were allowed to drink. Young men were not allowed to drink at all. It was a brew for the old generation, and they used to drink it only occasionally. But Mr. Speaker, at the moment, if you go to a lot of places, we've got this changa, and I have seen a changa factory, Mr. Speaker, and you will be surprised what kind of things come out of that. And I don't know if those things which come out, if they enhance the way a person will perform or how he feels, whether he goes to the seventh heaven or what, Mr. Speaker. But we need now to see that we can get people off those illegal drinks. And the best way to do is give incentives for the real good alcohol, that the 1% tax which the government has put in the Finance Act, which the turnover tax, should be removed, so that the Senator CAG, Mr. Speaker, if in the last Parliament, when I was in the Finance Committee, there was a time we had removed the taxes on Senator CAG. But unfortunately, Treasury thought, because it was being sold a lot, that they needed to tax it. And they killed that industry of Senator CAG. Mr. Speaker, I believe with this kind of law, what Mr. Honorable Osoro has proposed, we need to see, we need either to completely ban the advertising, or we put it not on prime time, because you would not want to sit with your kids and then you see somebody coming up on TV promoting, saying that people, if you drink this, you will be very strong wherever you want to be, and then you can be a Superman at that time. But Mr. Speaker, we need to see how we can sort out the advertising bit. Mr. Speaker, the other thing I would want to say is we need to put the law where nobody would be allowed to take their children into a bar, because we tend to take our children into a bar. And Mr. Speaker, I think I will end there because one of my colleagues is asking me to stop. But Mr. Speaker, I want to support Honorable Osoro and say thank you to you as well. Thank you.
Let's have to my left, Honorable Aseka, member for Kwisero.
Thank you, Speaker. One, I rise to oppose this amendment because, one, I'm a Christian. According to our Christian doctrines, we don't subscribe to alcoholism. Two, what the mover intends to do, the Speaker, is to postpone the problem. From watching its advertisement maybe at 7 to 9 or from 9 to 12 to midnight. 3, Mr. Speaker, the problem we have in this country is the consumption of illicit brews. It's now good for us as a House to work out on legislation on how we can address the production of illicit brews in this country. Otherwise, Mr. Speaker, I oppose.
Let's have Honorable Obo Mohammed.
Asante Bwana Spika kunipatia na mimi nafasi nichangie kwenye mswada huu. Moja kwa moja nataka kumshukuru Mheshimiwa Osoro kwa vile ametambua kwamba shida ya Wakenya ni maadili. Mswada huu unarekebisha au kubadilisha nyakati za matangazo ya kielektroniki yatakapopeperushwa hewani. Ni jambo zuri, ni jambo vyema kwa sababu muda huu tulionao wazazi wengi hawako majumbani kuweza kuwarekebisha au kuangalia watoto wanaangalia nini kwa maruninga. Watoto wakiachwa hivyo wanaangalia vipindi vile time yote wanaangalia hizo TV kwa manyumba, na watoto ni rahisi kushika yale wanayaona, na wengi wakipeperusha matangazo huleta zile hisia kwamba ukinywa hii ni sawa. Bwana Spika, mswada huu pia hauangazii kwa hao watoto peke yake, inaangazia paka wale ambao wamerekebishwa, wakirudi wakiwa wataangalia vile au mazingira itakuwa mabaya, huwa ni rahisi wao kurudi. Kwa mfano Lamu, sisi tunao vituo ambao tunawapeleka wakirekebishwa, lakini wakirudi hubidi urudia tena kwa sababu yale mazingira yetu na runinga zetu zinavyoonyesha. Bwana Spika, kusema kweli mswada huu dini yangu hainiruhusu mimi kuunga kivyovyote. Lakini nimeunga kwa sababu manake sisi kidini ya Kiislamu hairuhusu tembo kunwewa time yoyote, hata matangazo kufanywa time yoyote. Lakini nimeunga kwa sababu angalau unapunguza muda, na naona itafanya wengi wasiingie kwenye huo mtego wa kunywa hizo pombe. Angalau itapunguza, manake ikiwekwa masaa ambayo watoto hawako, wale wengine hawatainukia wakiwa nao wanajua tembo ni nini au pombe ni nini, ili nao wanywe. Bwana Spika, vileo viko aina nyingi. Vileo viko paka mgokaa unatusumbua sana Lamu na Pwani kwa jumla. Bwana Spika, nataka nieleze kwamba hao wengi wanakunywa hii pombe au wanaona kwamba pombe ni mzuri kwenye matangazo. Ni rahisi wao kwenda paka kwenye mihadharati. Na mihadharati huwa hawawezi kutofautisha baina ya mihadharati. Na wengi wanaokunywa pombe kisha huona hii haitoshi, ngoja tuongeze na mihadharati. Bwana Spika, nataka kuchukua nafasi hii niombe serikali yetu ya Kenya isiregeze kamba kwa ile mihadharati, especially Lamu, zaidi Lamu. Kwa sababu walikuwa wanafanya kazi nzuri, lakini sasa hii naona wameregeza kamba. Washikilie vile vile mihadharati ipate kutupungua. Bwana Spika, time ni kidogo, nimebakia dakika moja, labda nimpe mwingine naye achangie kitu. Asante Bwana Spika.
Thank you, Honorable Obo Mohammed. Honorable members, it is a few seconds to 1 p.m. and the House must rise. The good news is that for quite a number of members who still wanted to contribute, this is not the end of this second reading. So when this is scheduled again by the House Business Committee, the members who wish to contribute will still have a chance to do so. Honorable members, the time being 1 p.m., this House sat adjourned until today, Wednesday, 4th August 2021 at 2:30 p.m.
school, Jane completed her primary education against all odds. She was then admitted to the prestigious Kaaga Girls High School in Meru in 1974, where she performed exceptionally well in her CPE exams later in 1978. After completion of post-high school training courses, in 1979, she joined the Ministry of Lands and Settlement in Nairobi as a junior officer, but quickly got admiration from her supervisors because of her commitment to duty and integrity. Jane earned several promotions in various ministries before her demise as a senior officer in the Ministry of Environment and Forestry. Jane married Honorable Timothy Bosire, and together they had 6 children, and that is Jackie Kosen, Winnie Wawera, Michelle Murugi, Jake Moseti, Caleb Nyakundi, and Guevara Bosire. She was also mother-in-law to Lucas Kosen, a loving grandmother to Sababi Kosen and Resian Kosen. Jane enjoyed good health for most of her life. She started experiencing bad health in October 2019 and was treated at Nairobi Hospital, where she succumbed on 20th July 2021. May her soul rest in eternal peace. And then I heard a voice from heaven say, write this, blessed are the dead who die in the Lord from now on. Thank you.
Thank you, Moseti Nyakundi. And McKenna, the Lord bless you. May have your seats. Thank you. Worship team. We are going now to another session of the tributes, but we want to just to sing one stanza of the song, There Shall Be Showers of Blessing. And also media team, please ensure that the clip that is to be played for Pastor Blashes Ruguri is on standby as we continue. There shall be showers of blessing. Media team, get us that song on this.
There shall be showers of blessings. This is the promise of God. There shall be seasons refreshing, sent from the Savior above. Showers of blessings, showers of blessings we need. Mercy drops round us are falling, but for the showers we plead. There shall be showers. There shall be showers of blessing, precious reviving again.
Check for that this time.
Over the hills and the valleys, sound of abundance of rain. Showers of blessings, showers of blessings we need. Mercy drops round us are falling, but for the showers we plead.
There shall be showers of blessing. The chorus.
This is the promise of love. There shall be seasons refreshing, sent from the Savior above. Showers of blessings, showers of blessings we need. Mercy drops around us are falling,
in the Lord's presence. Indeed, we all need showers of blessings, and we pray the Lord shall shower the blessings to you, Mheshimiwa, and your family, and the close members who have been hit by this death. At this moment, we want to do some tributes. And before we do the tributes, I want to ask the tribute by Dr. Pastor Blesius Ruguri to play at this moment.
I am one of Jane's uncles. Jane knew me by one title, Babu, a Kidaraka word for dad. I knew her as Tata, a Kidaraka word for mother. Jane was one of our larger family's dearest daughters. She was full of love and affections for all the children in our family, our siblings, our relatives, and friends. With truly a very heavy heart, I take this moment to mourn our very precious daughter for some of us, and a sister, a niece, and a mother for others. Jane had a big, loving heart for all people. She was a truly loving wife to her dear husband, Mr. Bosire. I hereby wish to affirm him as a caring man, a caring husband, and a son to some of us, a brother, a father, and many more other things for others. We truly assure him and his children and his family of our full moral support during this trying moment. God is in control. The matter of death is most painful, humbling, and even so sobering. It is a mysterious matter that has not found a satisfactory answer in human culture and economy of life. The Bible has attempted to notify all children of men about the gravity of death. However, the same book, the Bible, has clearly said that death is not the end of the road for those who believe in God. Apostle Paul, in the book of 1 Thessalonians, chapter 4, beginning verse 13 through verse 22, has encouraged all of us that we should not be ignorant about what God has planned about death and those who die. He has told us to know that those who fall asleep, that is, those who die believing in God, will be in the company of our Savior, Jesus Christ, when he returns to this earth. I am here to witness to you that Jane's heart was a heart that was tuned to heaven. Jane will be among the number of those who will see the Lord at his coming. You and I must be having some questions than answers in connection with this so seemingly tragedy and loss. We are all wondering, why so soon? Why at this time? Why do bad things happen to good people? Let me, as I finish my short tribute, remind you all about how the man called Job in the Bible reacted or responded when he was confronted by tragedies beyond description. Job's tragedies began with a report about raiding Sabians who attacked and killed all his 70 herders and carried away all his plowing oxen and grazing donkeys. This was followed by another tragedy in which fire fell from the skies and burned all the thousands of his sheep and all the servants tending them. This tragedy was followed by a more grievous one in which the Chaldeans invaded and swept away all Job's camels and killed all his servants. You would wish it ended there. But this tragedy was followed by yet another worse one, in which a mighty windstorm came and swept the house in which all Job's daughters and sons were having a party and killed all of them instantly. At this, Job rose from his seat, tore up his robe, and shaved his head. Then he fell to the ground in worship and said something that we will do well to learn from. Job said, "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will depart. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. May the name of the Lord be praised." By all this, Job did not sin by charging God with any wrongdoing. He did not even lose his worship. He lost everything else, but he did not lose his worship. I wish all of us can learn that when tragedies of all kinds strike, while we may lose all our wealth, while we may lose our very most beloved family members, there is one thing Job is teaching us never to lose, and that is worship. What did Job know about God that kept him clinging on him in the midst of all these tragedies? Just listen to me a little while. It is prudent to let God be God. It is prudent not to question which He allows, even when we do not understand. It is prudent and profitable to worship in the face of the tragedies. At the end of the book of Job, we see God coming back and recompensing Job for all his losses doubly. This is amazing, and apparently Job knew something about the goodness of God and about his wisdom, even in the midst of everything that may happen to us. If we can only know that and realize that God knows how to turn losses into profit, how to transform sorrow for happiness and rejoicing, then with Job we will also worship, thank God for everything, even though we do not understand. For when He comes to pay us